The box showed up on a flatbed truck outside a church in central Texas, and it did not look like much. A folded slab of steel and insulated panels, about the size of a parking space. 4 volunteers with a rented forklift got to work on a Saturday morning, and by dinner time, that slab had unfolded into a small house with a locking front door, 3 windows, and wiring in the walls. Total price, delivered from a factory on the other side of the world, less than a used pickup truck. But when word spread about what that house cost, it raised a question that makes a lot of people in the housing industry very uncomfortable. If a factory in China can ship a livable home to a Texas parking lot for a few $1,000s, why are 750,000 Americans still sleeping outside tonight? To understand why that question stings so much, put 2 numbers side by side. A single unit of affordable housing in the United States now averages over $300,000 to build. In California, that number has passed $600,000 per unit. Los Angeles spent roughly $130,000 apiece on small cabins in one city program, cabins without their own bathrooms. And in that same city, the average wait for a homeless person to be placed in permanent housing has stretched to 867 days. That is well over 2 years of sleeping on concrete while paperwork moves through a system. Now hold those numbers in your mind, because a few years ago, listings started appearing on Amazon and Alibaba showing entire foldable houses for $2,000, $5,000, $8,000. Shipped from Chinese factories directly to American driveways. The videos went everywhere. A delivery truck backs up to an empty lot. A crane lifts off what looks like a giant steel suitcase. The walls swing up, the roof locks into place, and within an afternoon there is a house standing where there was gravel that morning. Millions of people watched those videos and had the same thought at the same time. Wait a minute, why are we not using these for the homeless? Here is what these homes actually are, because the details matter. The most common version is called a foldable container house. Picture a shipping container that has been engineered like a pop-up book. The floor, roof, and walls are hinged so the entire structure folds flat for transport. A standard unit gives you around 200 to 300 square feet once it opens up. The frame is galvanized steel. The walls are insulated sandwich panels. 2 sheets of coated steel with a foam core between them, the same material used in cold storage warehouses. Most units arrive with windows already mounted, a steel door with a lock, interior wiring, light fixtures, and outlets. The pricier models come with a small bathroom module and kitchen cabinets built in. You bolt it to a simple foundation, connect power and water, and it is done. And the reason they cost so little is not some mystery or some trick. Factories in Chinese provinces like Shandong and Hebei have been mass-producing these structures for decades, long before anyone in America was watching unboxing videos of houses. Mining companies order them by the hundreds for remote worker camps. Construction firms use them as site offices. Governments stockpile them for earthquake and flood relief, because a home that unfolds in an afternoon is exactly what a disaster zone needs. Those factories run assembly lines the way American factories build cars, welding frames and pressing insulated panels by the tens of thousands per year. And because the homes fold flat, 6 to 8 of them fit inside a single ocean shipping container. That one detail is what makes the whole economy work. You are not paying to ship a house across the Pacific. You are paying to ship a slice of a container. Basic folding units have been listed for under $1,000 before shipping. Finished expandable homes with bathrooms typically run $5,000 to $8,000. Even the futuristic capsule cabins you may have seen online top out around the price of a mid-range car, but the spec sheet does not tell you what it actually feels like to stand inside one. So let me paint that picture. You step through a steel front door into a space about the size of a modest studio apartment. The insulated panel walls do their job quietly. On a July afternoon in Texas, the interior stays noticeably cooler than the parking lot outside, and a single small mini-split unit on the wall handles both heating and air conditioning for the whole space. There is room for a real bed, not a cot, a small table by the window. In the mid-range models, a bathroom module with a flushing toilet and a hot shower sits behind a door at one end, and a kitchen counter with a sink and outlets for a hot plate and a refrigerator runs along the wall. The windows open, the door locks from the inside. For someone comparing it to a suburban house, it is small. For someone comparing it to a tent, a car, or a shelter cot in a room with 200 strangers, it is not a downgrade from anything. It is the first private, climate-controlled, lockable space they have had in years. And Americans have already started putting these to work. A retired couple in Georgia bought one as a backyard cottage for a widowed sister who could no longer afford her apartment after her husband passed. They set it on a gravel pad behind their garden, ran power from the house, and she moved in with her own front door 30 feet from family. Their story spread through their church until 3 more families in the congregation did the same thing for relatives, one paycheck away from the street. In rural Colorado, a rancher ordered 2 folding units and placed them near his barn for a father and son who had been living in a truck after a layoff, working odd jobs in exchange for the space. By the following spring, the father had saved enough for a rental deposit in town, and the rancher kept the units for the next family that needed them. A nonprofit outside Houston began experimenting with imported expandable units for veterans coming out of transitional programs because for the price of one conventionally built unit, they could shelter 10 men. If you have followed this channel for a while, you know this pattern. It is the same impulse that drove a struggling musician in South Los Angeles to spend $500 at a hardware store and build a house on wheels for a grandmother who had been sleeping in the dirt for 10 years. The imported homes are just the newest tool in that same American story, except this time the tool comes off a cargo ship, and it changes the math completely. Think about what a church with a $50,000 building fund can actually do. Built conventionally, that money might cover the permits and foundation work for a single small structure. Spent on imported foldable units, it could put 8 or 10 locking front doors on the ground in a single season. A mid-sized town's donation drive could shelter every chronically homeless veteran in the county for less than the cost of one conventionally built duplex. When people first run those numbers, they tend to get quiet because suddenly money is no longer the thing standing in the way. Now, I know what some of you are already thinking. Why should housing homeless Americans depend on a factory in China? Hold that thought, because it is a fair question, and the answer runs straight through the 3 catches the viral videos never show you. The first catch is the true cost of delivery. That $2,000 price on the listing is the factory price, sitting on a loading dock in China. Ocean freight across the Pacific, port fees, customs paperwork, tariffs on Chinese steel products, and trucking from the port to your property can add anywhere from $2,000 to $6,000 more, depending on where you live and what the trade policy looks like that month. A buyer near the port of Houston or Long Beach pays far less for the final leg than a buyer in Nebraska, where inland trucking alone can add over $1,000. Buyers have opened their invoices to find the shipping cost more than the house. A $2,000 home that lands in Ohio as a $7,000 home is still remarkably cheap, but it is not the number in the headline, and anyone planning around these units needs to know that going in. The second catch is quality, and it varies wildly. Some factories build to genuine export standards with real insulation values, proper wiring, and steel that will last 30 years. Others cut every corner a corner can be cut. Thin panels that sweat with condensation the first cold night. Wiring that no American electrician would sign off on. Doors that stop sealing after one season. One nonprofit buyer described opening a bargain unit and finding wall panels barely half the thickness promised in the listing, with wiring that his electrician refused to connect to the grid until it was replaced. The people who have done this successfully all say the same thing. You are buying a factory as much as a product, and you have to check the factory. There are third-party inspection services in China that will walk a factory floor, photograph your actual unit before it ships, and test the wiring and seals for a few $100s. And every experienced buyer calls that the best money in the entire project. Nonprofits that ordered samples first, inspected them, and built relationships with specific manufacturers ended up with solid housing. People who clicked the cheapest listing sometimes ended up with an expensive steel tent. So if you are the person in your family, your church, or your town who might actually pursue this, here is the short version of what the successful buyers do. They never buy from a listing photo. They ask the factory for the panel thickness in millimeters and the insulation rating in writing. They ask whether the wiring is built to the electrical code of the destination country. And they get that answer in the sales contract, not in a chat message. They order one sample unit before they order 5. They hire an inspection service to photograph the unit before it leaves the factory. And they get a full delivered quote to their own zip code, freight, port fees, tariffs and all, before a single dollar changes hands. None of that requires special expertise. It requires the same patience your parents used when they bought a car, applied to a house that arrives in a box. Duh. And the third catch is the one this channel keeps running into, story after story, city after city. It is not the house. It is the permission. A foldable home from China faces the exact same wall that grassroots builders have been hitting for a decade. Building codes in most American cities were written long before anyone imagined a home arriving folded on a truck. Zoning laws forbid placing them on most residential lots. Utility hookups require permits that can take a year. In some jurisdictions, a unit that took 4 hours to assemble takes 18 months to legally occupy. Cities have seized imported units the same way they seized hand-built ones, tagging them as unpermitted structures while the people they were meant for went back to sleeping on the sidewalk outside. There is one genuine bright spot on this front, and it is worth knowing about. Over the past several years, states like California, Oregon, and Washington have passed laws forcing cities to allow what planners call accessory dwelling units, small secondary homes in residential backyards. In those states, a properly anchored and inspected unit behind a family home can now be made fully legal, which is exactly the path that Georgia-style backyard arrangement takes in the states that allow it. The law is slowly catching up to the flatbed truck. Slowly. Which brings up something practical, because a lot of you ask the same question in the comments. What can one ordinary person actually do tonight? While the zoning boards argue and the cargo ships cross the ocean, homes take months. Winter does not wait. If you want to help homeless people in your own community right now, I can tell you what we have been buying for them. It is called the TerraShell, a thermal bivvy with a reflective lining that bounces a person's own body heat back to them, so someone sleeping outside stays warm without batteries, fuel, or any setup at all. They just climb in. It is windproof and water-resistant, and it folds down small enough to keep a few in your car for about the price of a takeout dinner. One woman in our community keeps 3 in her trunk, and she has not driven past someone on a cold night empty-handed since. Every single life matters. The link is in the description below. Now back to the bigger question, Because despite all those obstacles, some communities have figured out how to make the imported homes work at real scale. And the ones succeeding all discovered the same secret. The secret is the village model. A single foldable home dropped on a city sidewalk is an unpermitted structure waiting for a confiscation notice. But cluster 20 of them on one legally permitted piece of land with shared bathrooms, shared utilities, and on-site case managers, and suddenly everything changes. The permitting happens once for the whole site instead of 20 separate fights. The utility hookups get shared, the cost per resident collapses, and the residents get things a scattered unit can never provide. A gate and a staffed entrance, so people sleep without one eye open. A mailing address, which sounds small until you try applying for a job, or a benefits program without one. A caseworker whose office is 50 feet from your front door instead of a bus ride across town. This is the same village model behind the tiny house programs in Seattle we covered before, where more than 9 out of 10 people who reached permanent housing were still housed a full year later. The village model works. The imported homes simply make it dramatically cheaper to build one. A village that would cost $500,000 using American-built shelters can be stood up for a fraction of that when the housing units arrive flat-packed at a few $1,000s each, letting the savings flow into the things that actually change lives: the caseworkers, the counseling, the job placement. Rural America may be the biggest opportunity of all. Outside city limits, zoning is looser, land is cheap, and a county judge can approve in a week what a city council debates for 2 years. Farmers with unused acreage have placed units for seasonal workers and struggling neighbors. Small-town churches with a spare half-acre behind the fellowship hall have discovered they can do what billion-dollar city programs cannot: put a warm bed behind a locked door before the first frost. Rural homelessness is chronically undercounted precisely because it hides in vehicles, barns, and abandoned buildings, where no census volunteer ever walks. And these units fit that landscape almost perfectly. A county with one motivated church and one willing landowner can quietly shelter more people in a season than some city programs manage in a year. Even governments are beginning to come around. California ordered 1,200 factory-made tiny homes for 4 of its biggest cities, with the National Guard helping prepare the sites. Those particular units were American-made and cost far more than the imports. But the logic was borrowed straight from the grassroots playbook. Factories are faster than construction sites. Smaller is faster, and faster is what someone sleeping outside tonight actually needs. The moment procurement rules bend enough to let cities buy housing the way hospitals buy equipment from whoever delivers quality fastest and cheapest, the math of this entire crisis shifts. So let's answer the question in the title honestly. Could $2,000 tiny homes from China end American homelessness? Not by themselves. Homelessness is tangled up with addiction, mental illness, medical debt, and wages that stopped keeping pace with rent a long time ago. And no steel box on a cargo ship fixes any of that. The homes also are not really $2,000 by the time they land. And in most cities, you still cannot legally put one anywhere. But here is what these homes have already done. They have destroyed the last acceptable excuse. For decades, the answer to why people sleep outside was that housing is expensive and slow to build. That answer is now provably false. A weatherproof, insulated, lockable home can be manufactured, shipped across an ocean, and standing on American soil in a matter of weeks for less than most families spend on a vacation. The hardware problem is solved. What remains is permission, land, and the will to use them, and those are exactly the problems ordinary people have been chipping away at, one backyard and one church lot at a time. Think back to that church parking lot in Texas, the one from the beginning of this story. The house those volunteers unfolded on a Saturday afternoon now sits behind the church on a gravel pad, and a woman in her 60s lives in it, a woman who spent 4 years sleeping in her car after her husband died, and the medical bills took everything else. The first night, she reportedly sat inside with the lights on for hours, just looking at the walls. Her whole home folded flat on a truck bed a month earlier, on the far side of the Pacific Ocean. And now it holds her whole life. A house can cross an ocean in 3 weeks. The real question in every American town is whether it can cross a city council agenda. That congregation in Texas decided not to wait to find out, and there is nothing stopping the church, the town, or the family down the road from you doing the exact same thing. If you want to see what ordinary people do when they stop waiting on the system, the video on your screen right now covers exactly that, and it connects directly to this story. Click it, and if these stories matter to you, subscribe. I put out one every week.